right, let's take a look at the learning environment in regards to aesthetics, organization, and consistency. I want you to take a moment to pause this video to watch Katie Novak's Universal Design for Learning. She talks a little bit about what the difference is between differentiation and UDL. But one of the things that I find to be helpful is thinking about UDL while you are supporting differentiation. So I like to set a buffet up of learning for my students. And in this video, Katie talks about how if she's having a dinner party and she wants to make sure that, everybody's needs are met, she wants to think globally. Like, what are the needs? What are the global needs? They might be, I need a vegetarian dish, I need a traditional dish, I need a gluten-free dish, I need a vegetarian dish, or an option. So she's going to set a buffet so that for those larger areas of specific needs, she'll have something for them. All right. And then if somebody comes and they need something tweaked, it would be easy to respond to that because 99% of the people are supported. So the UDL framework is nice in the sense that if you think about everything you do, for example, is multimodal. Do I have written and video and audio and interactivity? Do I have those things built into everything I do? So that kind of addresses global needs. That's just one example of how you can set a buffet for learning. So watch the video and then think about how UDL can support differentiation, okay? And keep that in mind as you go through your days. So we talked about, okay, the learning environment, we need a launch pad. We want it to be aesthetically pleasing. We want it to be accessible for all learners. And we want it to have the bulk of what information would be needed for a target audience. And that would be your students and sometimes your parents as well. So here's an example of something that is an engaging and accessible launch pad. This school had this set up as for remote learning last year, and they're morphing it into coming back to school. But you can see that it's a middle school. They're a team. You've got the social studies, the ELA, the math, and the science teachers. So that's interesting. Announcements, schedule. Okay, so it's accessible. It has good information. They turned that slide off for whatever reason. Guidelines. What should you be doing in terms of homework? How do you check your grades? To-dos for parents, to-dos for students. I would suggest having a look at this, and I've linked this in your handout because it's chock full of ideas. And we're going to talk about this social studies one, but I'm just going to flip over to it, and I'm going to reference it a couple times as we go through the year. So let's see. So each week we've got the presentation. This is Google Slides and an audio file. And it's not only is it visually engaging, but it's organized, it's intuitive, it's multimodal, and it repeats itself week after week. So students are getting used to what this is, and they're not wondering and having to okay, how are we learning this week? Well, how is this going to look this week? When you have consistency built up, you're going to have students that are coming in and they're like, oh, I know what I need to do. I'm going to go to the read and respond. I'm going to go to the listen and learn. And they know what they need to do and how things are presented. So think about not only, you don't have to do anything so fancy. A lot of teachers will say, I can't do that. I get the organization piece. I get this piece, but boy, that's just a lot more aesthetics than I have time for. Well, that doesn't have to be the first thing you focus on. So take what you're learning and take the next step. So if it means that I can make a one-page website with information on it, then take that first step and know that there's always things you can do later, okay? But one of the things that you want to make sure that you have is a friendly launch pad. So a welcome video is a great thing to have, links to the classroom, office hours, resource hubs, and things like that. If you're looking at your handout here, you should see that you've got example 1, 2, and 3 here. This is a 5th grade, this is a demo site, but you've got a welcome video, you've got a link to classroom, you've got different things, peek inside with an auto playing a slideshow of things that are happening in the classroom. The other example I provided was one from years ago. Yep. From my VLAX class, which was done in Moodle. So it doesn't have to be Google Sites, it doesn't have to be anything in particular, but in this case, I had very limited tools to do anything aesthetically pleasing. So I used Canva to make an image file that had a nice background and engage, a nice welcome, something upbeat, and then important information, a picture of myself, how to enter the online classroom, tips and tricks, office hours, and an appointment link to schedule an appointment. So everything was there, one-stop shopping. So they're all different, but they're all helpful. So if you don't address that, if you haven't thought about creating a friendly launchpad, maybe that's your professional goal, is to take a look at some examples like I've provided, and then think, like, what do I need on my launchpad? When my students come, where are my parents going? And do I have one-stop shopping that's accessible and aesthetically pleasing for my entire audience? So the second piece is you have your launchpad, but the biggest component of your online environment is where you host your lessons and your assignments and your activities. So wherever you do that, we've already talked repeatedly about multimodal, text, image, video. What's also helpful, organization. Is it intuitive? In the social studies example that we just shared with you, you could see it was very organized. It would be intuitive because she's using the same technique week after week, a web page, the same setup for the slides. It's multimodal. She has images, text, video. Chunking, breaking up things into chunks instead of one big blob of material, or condensing, and we'll talk about that as we get further into product and process. But let's take a look at this Google Classroom I've prepared for professional development. You've got a class, okay, and when you get into the class, there is a welcome video here. And I've got the stream set up so it only posts what I wanted. It doesn't have notifications there, and a slide that complements the whole workshop. The classwork is broken down into topics. So you've got topic 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's chunking and organization, right? So it's very simple. It's not like, well, how do I organize this? Think about how you want to organize your own classroom and develop ways to do that. Visually pleasing, I've got some of these little images here to make it kind of like interesting. And then I've got patterns. So under Docs for Learning, when you click on number 1, this is a video that walks you through how to complete the assignment. So I literally do not need to teach this lesson. The student can open the video. It will explain, shows them what they're doing, and then what they need to access is right there. So for every assignment, I've got the same routine. So multimodal, organization, right? And patterns, predictability. Also chunking and building. I'm not putting everything in one lesson. It's going, a series of things that build on each other. So that's an example for the Google Classroom. And as we go through the strategies of content, process, and product, we'll be incorporating all of these things in various capacities as well. So when we talk about multimodal, providing multiple means for delivering content, engaging in the process, and demonstrating understanding is key. If you create a buffet, like Katie Novak was talking about, to address global needs as a best practice, zoning in to assess individual needs is more achievable. And you could just keep building on this over and over and over again. Okay. So now we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of content, process, and product. So in the next video, we'll begin to address different strategies. We'll have content in the next video.